everyone, and welcome to this episode of Writers Infusion. I'm your host, Susan. I am here with the usual gang, Dave, Jen, Julie, and Ed. And today we are joined by our writer, Brenda Marsian. Did I say that right?
You did say it right,
Excellent.
yes.
Yay, who drove here from Connecticut today, so thank you for coming in.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. We're really glad to have you.
Great.
So how long have you been writing?
Well, pretty much my whole life. I've always wanted to be a writer since elementary school, and in college I was more focused on communications and going into journalism, and I'm in fundraising development professionally, so the writing is grant writing and direct mail and motivating people and so forth, so which is wonderful work, but not until I got into my 30s did I start really writing, working on a novel in particular, and recently, about a year ago, I started a blog, so
that's terrific.
Keeping me to task and scheduled with writing.
Are you in a writers group?
I am. A wonderful writers group with some successful writers, actually, and we've been meeting, I want to say, well over close to 15 years, and there's about 8 women. We meet once a month, we share manuscripts, and there's been some nice success stories from that group.
That's terrific.
Yeah, super women, yeah.
That's really nice. So we'll have you read the summary, and I kind of, you know what, I should tell you this, I forgot to do this off camera, but we're going to stop, I had to stop it a little bit early just because we didn't have time to do all.
Page 6, okay.
Right, so where he says, I'm giving this away now, I made a mistake.
Okay.
That will be the last thing you'll
Very
read.
good, okay, good.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So the summary of this novel is, Jared is a 1980s rocker with a trail of broken promises, a son who doesn't know he exists. Tyler, a junior at an elite prep school, sets off on a trip to find his dad, and Liz, a desperate talent agent, has stars in her eyes when she rediscovers Jared. The Rock Heroes autograph show started at 8 a.m. at the LAX Marriott Hotel. The line of coke Jared snorted in the restroom before manning his table barely kicked in when the first fans trickled into the ballroom. It was like a bad high school reunion. For $25 a ticket, the public came to watch, meet, and hug the aging, once famous rock stars. For a few dollars more, fans could buy beer koozies, Rock Hero autograph decals, t-shirts, posters, and buttons for the celebrity rockers to sign. From what Jared could tell, most of the attendees weren't fans. Bored businessmen killing time before their appointments walked aimlessly through the exhibition. A few travelers on layovers picked through old albums for sale. Jared's manager played up the whole event as a charity opportunity. Proceeds go to cancer research. Don't you want to find a cure? Lance Belkin was a sarcastic bastard who could care less about helping others. He was only interested in making money and neutralizing the spectacle that Jared Hunter, former lead singer of Maniac, made at the Plaza Hotel in New York City a few months earlier. A stereotypical rocker tirade started. Jared mouthed off to the Oak Room bartender for cutting him off after his 7th vodka martini. In retaliation, Jared picked a fight with his suite. Curtains yanked from their rods, mirrors smashed, bathtub overflowing, and cushions gutted for their stuffing. The New York Post's front cover read, "Relic Rocker Wrecks Room." "I'm not a has-been, I'm independently wealthy," explained Jared to his manager while looking out at the Pacific Ocean from his Malibu home. He inhaled deeply from his joint and held it. "You're a rich asshole who hasn't had a hit in over 10 years, snapped Lance on the other line. "I don't want to do it," Jared choked, finally exhaling. "What else are you going to do, get stoned?" "Yeah." "You're becoming a recluse. You don't write, perform, or do anything." "I did some chick the other night, Dee Dee," he said. The high kicked in. Jared could hear Lance sigh. "Come on, man. You could tour with the band. I bet I could sell out mid-level venues without a new single from you," Lance suggested. "I'm not touring." Jared walked out on his desk. A wave crashed, its foam sliding under the posts of his beach house. "I know you're depressed over Chrissy. She was a great girl and she broke your heart. There will be other girls. Maybe Dee Dee will work out." Jared tossed the remaining nub of his joint off his deck. He didn't want to talk about Chrissy either. She had given him an ultimatum after 6 months of dating, marriage or she was heading back east. Her career as a dancer wasn't gaining any momentum, and she was 32 years old, retirement age in LA for a dancer. Even Chrissy's efforts to finagle a live-in situation with Jared were rejected by him. "Fine, I'll do the autograph show as long as you don't ask and talk about Chrissy." Great, you're headlining. Dee Snider couldn't make it. You sing acoustic at 2 p.m. 2 songs. Bye. At the autograph show, aisles of 6-foot tables each hosted a rock hero from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. One table featured 3 video rock vixens. Jared thought he recognized one of them, Vicki Stevens. 15 years earlier, they had sex after a concert. She was exceptional at straddling the hoods of Corvettes, crawling on floors like a sex-starved nympho, and pouring water over her white tank top. Now her engorged breasts were unharnessed and hung out of her button-down blouse. Her face didn't fare as well, a side effect to tanning beds and a botched facelift. There was an old soap opera star from the 70s who sang backup on her dad's 60s folk band. Recent news said the creepy dad was the leader of a bizarre cult, and his daughter was his personal pimp, luring underage girls into his Laurel Canyon harem. He died of liver failure 5 years before, and sordid allegations and the lineup of abused, now middle-aged women who were locked up in his lair revealed their torture on TV. The daughter looked barely alive, strung out, a stutterer, and yet manning the most popular booth at the show. Jared sat on a metal folding chair. His hair was now wavy brown with thick sideburns. He no longer dyed and permed it. An hour into the show, and no one had approached him. He was a little relieved about the sparse attendance. The fewer people who recognized him, the better, he thought. This wasn't the Grammys, American Music Awards, or MTV Video Awards. This was the scene of hard times. Jared's money was intact, and yet he was reduced to a ballroom on the outskirts of LA. Aside from the airport across the street, rental car terminals, fast food chains, and loitering hookers, there wasn't much else happening. Jared wasn't washed up. He self-selected out of the music scene. Suddenly, Jared's face was looking up at an extra-large t-shirt with his maniac persona sprawled on the front. His eyes rose to see a very rotund woman looking at him. She was crying. 2 hearts or 1 got me through my sophomore year of high school. Jared stammered, thinking he needed another break in the bathroom with his vial of Coke. Is that so? Well, I'm glad. The woman's face was heavy with makeup, applied just the way Maniac used to wear it, and her hair teased and dyed the same color blonde as Jared's back in the 80s. I love you, the woman cried, clutching her Rock Heroes koozie and a glossy photo of Jared to her chest. Jared reluctantly rose from his chair, happy to have the table as a buffer between him and the fan. Would you like me to sign that? My name is Tammy. I came all the way from Idaho to see you. She handed Jared the koozie and photo to sign. Wow, I hope you flew. Oh no, I drove. I took a week of vacation time to see you. We've actually met before. Jared scribbled his name on each of the items with his black Sharpie, and when his eyes met Tammy, she had pulled down her t-shirt's collar to reveal Jared Hunter's signature on her right breast. You signed my chest in 1988, and then I got it tattooed over, so you are by my heart forever. See? 2 hearts or 1. She smiled, revealing a missing front tooth. Jared had signed a lot of body parts, plenty of boobs, but never saw one inked. Wow, Tammy, that's impressive. Jared looked around to see if there was any security. He used to have a group of former wrestlers for bodyguards. The beefy guys created a human wall of bulk around him as he ran from venue to venue, in and out of limos. Can I give you a hug? Tammy asked. This was why Jared wanted out. Tammy and the millions of other Tammys were why he spent more time at his house than venturing into the world. The circus his life had become wasn't what he wanted anymore. Relentless fans clamoring and shaking the band's limo, and all the guys freaking out inside, frightened that the force of the screaming girls clamoring would flip the limo over. The tour buses that traveled all over the United States and Europe were moving prisons. Cramped quarters, the snoring, poor hygiene, and clutter of his bandmates was 24/7. Tammy drove all the way from Idaho and had Jared's name on her boob. How could he say no to her request? Was this his penance for smashing the Plaza Suite? He walked around the side of the table to greet Tammy, who engulfed him in a python grip hug. With a face full of Aquanet sprayed hair, Jared patted her back to cue her that the hug was over. Wow, Tammy, this is the best hug I've ever had. He spit some of her hair out of his face and gripped either side of her hips to pry himself free, then bolted for the bathroom. He pushed through a stall door and locked himself in, sitting on the toilet seat to collect himself. Instinctively, he pulled out his cell phone and dialed Chrissy. Hey, he smiled, relieved that she was willing to pick up. Hey, I'm not calling too early, am I? I was just getting up. He could tell she was still in bed, and he envied the silk sheets entangled around her curves and long legs. He pictured her naked, silver dollar nipples, dark pubes, full lips, sleepy brown eyes, and tangled, thick brown hair. He wanted to be beside her at that very moment. I miss you. It was quiet on the other line. Chrissy, I'm sorry. And Jared was sorry. I haven't talked to you in 6 months. Why now? Chrissy sounded far away. You still with your folks? Yeah, just figuring out my next move. Why are you calling now, Jared? I made a mistake.
Good reading.
Thank you.
Who wants to start with this one?
I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
I think that you have some natural comedy here with the situation and the way he looks at things, and just the way you express things. I think that this is really funny.
Yeah.
And so you could have a good comedy novel here.
Yeah.
I think that one thing you need to stick close to Jared because it's his point of view that makes everything happen. And I want to see more of that. Like when you start off describing the autograph show, that's not so interesting because it's not from his point of view.
Right.
If you described it from his point of view, that would be different. It's like you start off, Jared looked at this, and tell us what he sees, and more important, what he's thinking about it, what he's feeling about it.
Right.
That kind of thing. And I'm not sure, but you might want to consider doing this in first person because he has such a, he has such a personality. He has such, he has great lines, and like I said, a pure comedy way of looking at things. That the more in his head you are, the better. So if not first person, really, we should be riding around on his shoulder. We should be seeing everything from his point of view. There are some things that you tell us that would work better as dialogue. Like at the bottom of the first page, when you're telling us about Lance Belkin, you're telling us he's a sarcastic bastard. You're telling us he could care less about helping others. Have that come out in the dialogue.
Right.
Have him say certain things that make it obvious to us that this is the kind of person he is, and as part of the dialogue with Jared, Jared could say, "You really care about cancer?" He's like, "No, but there's bucks in it," something like that. The more of that you can do, I think, the better.
Great.
Because
I don't know if you want to write it as a comedy. It certainly could be. There's some humor in it, but I need to know more about Jared. I need to be invested in Jared. You gave us wavy brown hair. He used to dye it, but I don't know what length his hair is. I'd love to have him run his fingers through his hair. He has to do something at that table. I'd like him to drum. I'd like him to write lyrics of his next song based on the crowd. Something. Daydream about Chrissy, but he's doing nothing at the table but sitting, and then there's a woman in front of him. So I'd love him to have physical actions or thoughts. But I do want to have more description of him. How is he dressed? How is he at home? And how is he dressed for this event? He's no longer in his getup. I think of Gene Simmons, who I don't think looks that normal with his jet black hair. But versus Kiss makeup, then it's very different. It's such a dichotomy. But I'd like to know. Well, first of all, I thought you could start stronger and perhaps with a conversation, as Ed said, have the manager call him, and maybe wake him mid-afternoon.
Right.
Because that's the way he lives his life. And what is his house like? I hear it's in Malibu, but are there takeout containers, cigarette butts, empty beer cans all over? Is it beautifully decorated? How does he dress himself usually? How does he approach the world? I really want to know about him and his life and his mindset. What does he do with his time? Is he still intrigued by music? I know he doesn't want to be on the tour bus, but does he still want to write? Does he still want to perform? Does he have a convenience store job? I'm curious. I want to like him.
Yep.
I kind of feel like we got to know him, though, based on this. I had a little bit, I'm still struggling with where I think the story should really start. If it's at the convention, because there's also a little bit of backstory here about getting invited to go to the convention or being told he has to go. So I wasn't quite sure where that should start. But I felt like I got to know him okay. I mean, I didn't love him. He's doing drugs and he's not really committed to anybody. But he was still an interesting character, so that was actually okay for me. So I don't know if anyone has any opinions on some of the backstory it starts with and if that works.
Yeah, it kind of like, well, the jumping around kind of confused me a little because we start with the show and then we go back to the conversation with the manager and then we go even further back with the tirade at the hotel and then we come back to the telephone call and then we go even further back with the breakup with Chrissy and then we're back to the autograph show. So that jumping around kind of threw me off.
chronology,
There was there was backstory within backstory. It was like this nested backstories. But I agree with Ed. I love Jared's voice. I grew up in the '80s, so I totally see like Tawny Katane, like on the Corvette. I absolutely know which video that was. So I loved that. There were a couple of times where I said so on the bottom of page 2. Chrissy's efforts to finagle a live-in situation with Jared were rejected by him, but I don't know why. Why? And then the other one was, and then in the end he wanted her. Well, why? And it does end there. So in fairness to you, it ends there. So maybe you go on to say that. There's one part that kind of pulls me out of the story a little bit on page 3. So he's kind of looking at everybody on the at the show, and I liked that he the vixens, and I like that. But then you go into this paragraph about this creepy, bizarre cult. If the cult is critical to the story, then keep it. But if the cult never comes up again, I would just take the paragraph out. It's interesting, but if it's not necessary, it pulls me right
I was
out.
hoping you'd say that because I want to edit, and I thought maybe Jen would say her famous phrase, "Kill your darlings," because you may love some of the phrasing, but you'll have to get rid of it to
You
make
can
the
write
story
that
flow.
story another time. You can write their story because that's an interesting story, but maybe another.
Right.
And I'm sad to say that I know this, but Kuzi is spelled with a K.
No, actually, I looked it up. There's a C
it's
and
K.
a K, and
Is it
I've
both?
seen
Oh,
K
yes,
too.
and it's a Z-I-E. Yes, I looked
I think
yes.
K-O-O-Z-I-E. That's what I have. So and if I'm picking on that, then I'm really reaching to find stuff. I have lots of smiley faces and laughs, and like I said, anything that happens in the '80s is right up my alley. So. But I felt he was sympathetic. I felt he was funny, but also sad. So and I thought I think you can have a funny, sympathetic, sad character, and that gives him a lot of depth. So I did like him a
I
lot,
think
and I
so,
did
too.
connect with him. And I think it's okay that he's funny because part of that is probably part of a defense mechanism for him too. So.
That actually made me like him. So if if it were just about the drugs, then I have a harder time with that. That's just me.
Right.
But the funny part drew me into him.
And keeping people at a distance, and the drugs, but he's loaded, and he still has a Malibu house, and
Yeah, you really get a good feel for what he's like right away.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of humor and pathos being not even the other side of the coin. They're on the same side of the coin. There's such an elemental difference, or microscopic difference between humor and pathos. I didn't find this funny at all. If you follow the newspapers today, Justin Bieber is complaining about the crowds, and he feels like a zoo animal, and he's whining about. This is adolescent kvetching. You're making fun of the very thing that's giving you enough money to buy the dope that gets you through the day. And I just can't go along with it. I find it kind of repulsive. It's a bratty little kid whining. I think you did a great job with the incredible fan. I mean, it is so sad.
Tammy.
Super fan, too.
It is just so sad that somebody has driven from Idaho to hug this has-been from 30 years ago, whatever. And you've done a great job of capturing both of them.
Yeah.
He's repelled by her. I'm repelled by him. And she's just looking for some kind of gratification. Where does he go for she's looking for gratification. Where does he go for gratification? He runs into the bathroom to call his ex-girlfriend. I don't see anything funny in that. This is what you've done, and if you want to work this way, is you've put this guy in a hole. He's buried himself in this miserable situation where no one is nice. an agent is supposed to be on your side. This guy's not on his side. He's getting pushed around. He's getting pushed around by the fans. He's ridiculing the very source of his income. So it's called a man in the hole story. You've buried him. Now, we, the reader, if we'll get through the disgust of the individual character, i.e. Justin Bieber, then we will stay with him to see how he climbs his way out of the hole. And I can't see it happening because he's got such a narrow point of view. And but I think you've nailed the milieu of this entire autograph situation. Those are the people who are there. This is the only way they can make money. Because I don't go to the autograph, but I go to those old timer concerts from the '60s. They're terrible. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They don't have a voice between them, really. But I go because it makes me feel comfortable. I feel good about going and hearing them sing. Well, this is essentially what these people are doing. No, I don't find it funny. I find it just pathetic. No, a normal curiosity, interest in these people is fine.
I mean, the character's not the writing, right?
Oh no, the writing's fine.
I want to make sure you don't
Yeah, I'm talking about the people.
You got an
in the
emotional response.
Right,
This
that's
is all
good.
good.
Right.
No, yeah, I don't like the guy. He's got to earn my respect now because I don't respect him. I don't respect his lifestyle. He's blowing a perfect chance. He's got lots of money, it seems.
He does.
Yeah.
I did on top, like just to tail off of that a little bit, when he does call her, it seems like it's been a while since he's seen her or talked to her. So when he suddenly calls her, it seems weird that they just get into a conversation right away, like she just accepts that he's calling.
Right.
So that was something I noticed. And the other thing is right before he calls her, he's just thinking about what she looks like naked. And maybe that's how a guy thinks, but I'm not a guy, so I don't know. But
Is that part of
So-
women's fiction?
yeah,
Guys thinking about how women look
But-
naked?
yeah,
This
maybe.
guy, but
This guy, yeah.
But
Because
so,
I was confused. I'm sorry. I was confused by women's fiction. This doesn't sound like women's fiction to me at all.
I wanted us to talk about that. I mean, I'm not sure, what you mean by that. But
Pop
when
fiction, maybe, if you're talking about these people. But women's fiction, it doesn't seem to have that icky feeling to me.
well, I guess when you, he's not one
And
of
I'm
these
not
helpful.
sure. I
How
think
you
that
really
was
feel about it, Dave?
putting it in a category, but I'm not sure what that category is myself.
When you're done with the book, you'll know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Well, if you read the summary, then it seems like women's fiction, right? And can I just ask one more thing?
Please, absolutely.
So what was I asking before? Oh, so when he's picturing her like that, he just pictures what she looks like naked, and then he goes to call her and says he misses her. Then to me that adds on to what Dave said about, I mean, why do I like this guy? It's not like he's thinking that he loves her, he misses her. It's all about because of her body. And maybe
Right,
that's what
right.
you intended. I'm just kind of throwing
Maybe that's
that
the way
out
guys
there.
think.
Well, you can tell us, or you don't want to tell us.
I don't want to.
All right. But what did you intend this to be funny? Because I didn't read it
I
that
didn't
funny
read it as
either.
funny.
I didn't read it like. I mean, I thought
think
he
it's
was.
just the tone of how I write. I do tend to.
Hyperbole. I mean,
It tends to be my
louder.
style,
Yeah, it's good.
but
That's
I
fine.
want him to be the man in the hole, and he evolves throughout this book.
perfect. If
So,
you saw
yeah.
a growth, you're gonna, and that's essentially what good writers want to do. Is they want to display a rational, understandable growth. You're rooting for the guy to climb out of the hole.
Right.
It's that maturity. Because right now he's a whining adolescent.
I wanted to
Yeah.
address the dialogue in that scene Sue was just describing at the very end on the phone with Chrissy. When he says, I assume it is he saying, I miss you, but we're not sure. And we
Right.
named attribution there. So I
Yep.
said, I miss you, blurted Jared. Some strong
Right.
verb, so we know.
Right.
It's coming out quickly. He may not mean it, or he means it, but he says it too fast. He should go with a slow intro.
Right.
And if we can revisit Tammy on page 4, he rises to meet her, and I wonder why he rose. Because some people would have attitude or not be bothered with the rising, just sit behind that table. And he asked, would you like me to sign those? And I think she should respond. Yes, she should exclaim. She is thrilled. She's ready to jump over that table and
Right.
attack him. And instead of my name is Tammy, maybe I'm Tammy. She's going to be very quick, and she wants to let him know who she is and how they've met before. And maybe show his disinterest in contrast to her enthusiasm. He may be muttering his responses. I don't know that he'd say that's the best hug I ever got. No offense to you.
Right.
But maybe he's not thrilled to be there. We know that. But maybe he's indicating to her he's not thrilled to be there. And he doesn't appreciate how joyful and elated she is because he...
You know what? Something else that might go on there. She might say, "Don't you remember me?"
Yes.
Perfectly
Right.
serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
Remember the
Someone
time
like that
when I
would be
was
like
at the,
that.
and then she goes into recount
Right.
where they met.
and he would be
Oh,
a
she
deer in the
wrote down the
headlights.
exact
Like,
date and
who is
location.
this?
Exactly,
You know, he'd be a deer in the headlights. Like,
remember
who
We
is
met at
this
the Boston
person?
Garden on
No,
July
Ed, what did you
17th,
want to bring up?
1985.
You had brought, you said a couple minutes ago you had something you wanted to discuss. Was it the
Well,
women's
it
fiction?
was the women's fiction thing.
Okay.
I mean, I found this funny, and I liked it, you know, from a funny point of view. But I can't tell where you're going with it.
I
mean,
asked
from
that too. Where's it going?
Yeah, I mean, from the description, it seems like, okay, so something really different is going. This guy's life is going to be impacted real soon
Right.
by something, you know, which will send it in a different direction, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because there is a way something like that can play out, and you know, it would be heartwarming or wrenching or whatever, or it could be extremely funny to have something that's seemingly earnest going on, you know, with a dimwit like this guy.
Right.
You know, who knows what would go on with him at the other end of these people.
Sure.
So, you know, there's all kinds of ways that this can play out.
And how soon in the story do we meet Liz and Tyler?
That's something I'm sort of figuring out because originally I think we have a few chapters with Jared where we get to know and we
Good.
see that there's a bigger downfall that's to
Different
come.
point of
Oh
view.
my,
So the
correct.
different point of views. Okay.
And then we'll see Jared a few years later. So there's different. It goes from starting in, I think we're in 2001 or 2002, all the way up to current time. So I think there'll be initially Jared, then we'll be introduced to Tyler, the son, as a teenager, who's confused and doesn't know, like, who are my parents? And then we then meet Liz, who kind of is the person that puts them all together.
Interesting.
So next.
Well, you have a lot of work to do.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
this is my
huge-
third draft
There's
of
a
this.
huge story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Do you, we have to start wrapping it up. I'm just watching the clock. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I'm curious when you mentioned women's fiction. Is it important that I know what genre I'm writing in at this
No.
point?
I don't think
Okay.
so.
So just don't
All right.
title it women's, because
Okay.
I don't think it
Well, we
falls
just-
into that right
yeah.
now.
I think we just ask on our website what you think it is. Maybe that's why, but you don't have to
Right.
worry about it.
I think
now.
popular fiction is good. I mean, what kind of an audience do you want? Women's fiction narrows the scope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, there was a part of me that thought this could even be a young adult
Yes,
with
it could.
Tyler in it,
Sure.
because I think he's sort of an interesting person and going through some not knowing his history and why he seems privileged but not so privileged and just confused. So I think there could be some young adult elements too. So
And now there's new adult too.
Well, I wonder if you
right,
would,
yeah.
Which is like the early 20s.
Is that true? What?
if you're going in that route, why don't you start off with the
The
kid?
kid.
Start off with the kid and find out we'll really like the kid.
right.
And then somehow the knowledge that his father was this ex-rocker, and then his travel to meet
Oh my
him.
gosh.
And then we could follow the rocker, who was a loser, and now you've set
I
up,
like it.
Lovable loser.
yeah, a lovable
He's
loser.
sympathetic.
But what you've got now is a natural conflict,
Yeah.
which, and everybody who's reading it would say, oh, you know, it's like the big wave coming. Oh, wait until they get together. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And that would
Right.
that's a
It's
natural
true.
conflict.
If we see
Yes.
the kid first, and then independently we see Jared in his lifestyle,
Yeah, maybe-
the reaction
maybe
would be like,
newspaper-
"Oh my God,
That's his
this
dad."
is what this kid is headed for."
Right.
You know, if
Right.
we know that before he knows
Yeah.
that,
That's true.
you know, the impact would be terrific.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
Right,
We solve the
hopefully
world's problems.
That's right. And record it too, so that's great. Yeah.
So Brenda,
Work on
thank
the
you so much
election.
for
Thank you.
coming.
Thanks,
It was really
it's
nice
been fun.
meeting you.
Yes.
And thank you everyone else for joining us for this episode of Writers Infusion. We will see you next time. Keep writing.